found an insert for us that maybe laid aside for our goal today is to hear from Alyssa and her story of her mission trip from this past June. So don't think that you've missed something. I never get rid of anything. So we'll use those things another time. But I do want to read the scripture for you today. It's from Matthew. It's a familiar passage. Jesus came and told his disciples, I have been given all authority in heaven and on earth. Therefore, go and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Teach these new followers to obey all the commands I have given to you. And be sure of this, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Come, Alyssa.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm really excited to share with you my story and experience with Honduras Ministries, and I hope through these stories you can see God's hand and His love. And I'm standing on the floor with you guys because I want this to be more of a conversation. And interrupt me anytime, question, or just wanting to engage more with the story. So, starting in the very beginning, Honduras Ministries started by Jim and Prince Martin, and their daughter Andrea is there in the middle. And Jim is American, and he's an engineer, and he has adult kids, and just kind of doing his thing, and went to Honduras in 1997 on a short-term mission trip. Did a couple of those, and he met Francis, and they got married. They started Honduras Ministries. And Paul Mitchell, there in the blue t-shirt, he went on some mission trips to Honduras, and he works with my dad. So one day, he was telling my dad about Honduras Ministries, and one of their current needs in 2010 was to have someone come and teach women how to sew. And my dad's like, well, my daughter knows how to sew. So he comes home, and he tells me about this, and he says, Alyssa, would you like to go and teach women how to sew in Honduras? And I said, no. I was 15, I had never been out of the country, very minimal Spanish, and I've got a very shy personality, I want to stay at home, be comfortable, and so I flat told him, no, absolutely not. And as a good father, he said, well, how about you just think about it? And so I did, and well, I tried not to, but God kind of made me think about it. And I was listening to the radio, and there was a song on the Christian station, and the lyrics said, where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. And I was like, you know what, if I go, God in the universe will go with me. And that thought was just like, whoa, like, all right, I can do this. And that was my call. So the next year, my dad and I went over spring break. And again, I was 16, I just had my birthday. But before we went, my grandma, she's the one who taught me how to sew. And so she helped me find a pattern. I was going to teach women how to make aprons and pack up all the fabric and all the supplies in one suitcase. It's compact, ready to go. We get to Honduras, and it's not there. Planes only come into Honduras one time, about noon, and then they all reload and leave one time. So there wasn't another plane that was going to bring my suitcase from the States. And so I'm here in this foreign country, no Spanish, missing a suitcase, and I have nothing. My class starts tomorrow morning. And so we went to the mall, and there was a store where we bought fabric, and I made up a pattern, which is really cool, and I thank God for that creativity that He has in me, and that I was able to do that. And they were helping me cut out the fabric, the pattern for everyone to use. And so right there in the front was Andrea, and she was my translator. And Andrea's 15, so I'm 16, and she's 15 translating, and we're in charge of this thing, like these two little babies here. So that was pretty crazy. So I plan on teaching 6 ladies, actually taught 7, and taught them how to make aprons. And so Andrea's my translator, and then there's 2 ladies, Mila and Lillian, and they were from Honduras and knew how to sew, so they helped teach the basic skill, and we're learning how to make an apron. So all 7 ladies graduated, which is amazing, and it took us 2 days. And so as I was teaching, my dad was able to talk to some ladies and hear some of their stories. So one of the ladies was actually in a gang, but now she's turned her life around and is going to church there. And I got to teach her how to sew. And then another lady sells peanuts on the side of the road, and she does it every day, and that's how she makes her living. And so now she has another opportunity, so she doesn't have to stand outside all day. Also on this first trip, we went to La Fortunita, which is a village kind of way out in the middle of nowhere, and we went to church there. And as you can see, we're sitting outside. We don't have a church building. And at the beginning, several ladies gave testimonies of how God was working in their lives, kind of that week. And so we had church outside, and it was really cool. Also, when you have church outside, everyone is invited, even the pigs. So the pigs took the back row right there. But then I remember there's chickens and dogs and cats. So if you imagine film worship is crazy sometimes when we have kids in here. Imagine like a chicken running through. Yeah, so that was awesome. So we came back home and told our home church about all these adventures we went on and how God was working. And 2 years later, we got to put together another team from our church. And that was a pretty big team. We had nurses and nursing students, high school and college students, my youth pastor, and my dad and I got to go again, and so did my little sister, that's Amber, and she's 2.5 years younger than me, so she got to go. So it was more of a family thing this time. And so that's us at the zoo, actually. And we got to visit La Fortunita again, and they had got to build a church building, so we worshiped there one evening. And I had another sewing class. I had 10 students this time, and I did small groups. I had 5 students each day. I taught them how to make skirts, and so they had fit them to their size, and that was really cool. And this year, my translator was Luce, and she's the Jim and Francis neighbor. And so I got talking with her, and she went to college in Canada, and it was like 5 different languages. So it was really cool to work with her and know that she has these skills, and that's what she was able to contribute to God's work that week. So in the spring, I got to share with you, take a second video of myself speaking because I had been gone for a school thing, about the trip that I took this summer. And our plan was to go June 2nd to the 9th, and we were going to raise $20,000 for us to go on the trip, and then also for sewing class, medical brigade, construction projects, and soccer tournament. So this was our plan. So my plan was to have 10 students again and to teach 2 projects. I only had one before, to teach them how to make curtains and bags. And then we're going to have 2 U.S. nurses come and partner with a Honduran doctor, and they get on a free clinic. And when they spend all day in the clinic, about 75 people get medical care that they don't have access to at any other time. And sometimes it's more. Sometimes 100 people show up, and they work so hard. It's amazing. And the plan was to have a bathroom, a kitchen, and a classroom built in La Fortunita. And that was a picture my dad took of a bathroom in 2011. And I didn't really want to go in that bathroom, but I never had to because we had only visited like an evening at a time, so I was able to wait. But anyway, I was planning to do some kids ministry stuff while we were there. So this is our plan. But if you know anything about missions trips, our plan is often broken or changed and replaced by God's plan, which I always find is so much better than my own. So even this morning, I had a plan. And I was talking to Pastor Joy, and we were going to go like a pretend sewing class up here and have a couple of ladies come up and I was going to teach them how to do something, just so you got the kind of feel of that. But I didn't really know how that was going to work and the logistics, and I was just thinking about that. And Andrea messaged me on Facebook, and she's going to college, actually where my sister is in Kansas. And she's like, hey, I miss you. I'm like, hey, I missed you too. And oh, by the way, I'm talking about Honduras. Like, I'd like some input from you because she's from there and has great insight. And so I told her about what I was thinking about doing, and I was like, so what is most significant to you about these sewing classes? Just not knowing what she's going to say. And she said, I like the fact that you showed them how to make curtains because many people there don't even have a door. And you can see my response there, but it took me a while to respond because I just sat there and cried, and I'm not a very emotional person. And so that was crazy just to think about. So that's God's plan this morning, was to really humble me. Because where I was sitting at that moment, I had 4 doors faced outside. I had privacy and security, and they didn't have that. Now they have a curtain, and that's amazing. So our trip, this is the team that we took. So we left at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, and later this evening to Tegucigalpa, which is the capital city in Honduras. And we went to Burger King for lunch, of course. We always do when we go to Honduras, we go to Burger King. So this is our team from left to right, and the gray is Milena, and she was a nurse, and this was her first time out of the country. And then next to her, kind of behind her, is my mom. This was also her first time out of the country. And it was really cool that she came because our whole family was there. That's just a fun dynamic on this trip. And actually, the first mission trip I ever went on to Oklahoma, all 4 of us got to go as a family. So it was kind of cool to do that. And then Brenda in red is a nurse, and this was her second time in Honduras, and she just rocks the being a nurse. She is amazing. And my sister Amber and my dad and I, and so that was our trip. Also, my parents are coming here in November, and I'm so excited to introduce them to my Castlehead family. So yeah. So when we got off the airport, there was our 6 of us team, and about 9 people came and greeted us. Pastors from the church and missionaries and so many people. So this was our welcoming crew to Honduras. If that doesn't make you feel special, I don't know what does. It was amazing. And then on Wednesday, we got in a van and we traveled south to Choluteca. And so Tegucigalpa is the capital city of Honduras, and you've got a lot of fast food restaurants and paved roads. Like, it's a lot more city-like. And so is Choluteca. They have a Pizza Hut there that we went to. But from there, we went to La Fortuna, which is probably 45 minutes away. And this is Dr. Hunt, and she held a medical clinic there for the child sponsorship children. And that program was talked about in a little brochure I passed out. And so right now, the child sponsorship program has enough funds for 25 students, elementary age kids to be covered, but they actually minister to 50 because the need is so big. So God's enabled them to take what they have for 25 and spread it out for 50. So that's something that they're trying to grow funds for because the need is so big. So that's something to think about. But that's what she was doing, giving medical care to those kids. That's part of the program. And this was Melanie and Brenda's first opportunity to share their nursing skills, and a lot of it was just handing out vitamins and giving kids really basic things. So that was really cool. And so also, we brought all the desks outside of the church, and all the kids sat down, and we did balloon animals, which was super fun, and we had a bunch of suckers, and they called them bonbons. And so Pastor Juan Carlos is out there, and he starts doing trivia with the kids, Bible trivia, and then he looks to me and my sister, right there in the picture, and he's like, hey, like, give us some questions. And my sister's like, I don't know, I haven't thought about this in a long time. And so I'm trying to think of stuff. It was kind of hard because I don't know what Bible stories they've heard of, what they've studied, even though these are all the church kids. So probably could do a little bit of that today. And I'd ask some of the questions I tried to think of for those kids, and you get it right, you can have a bonbon. So can anyone tell me who built the ark? No? I think so. You gotta raise your hand. Yes? Good job. Fantastico. That's what we're proud of. Can anyone tell me where did Adam and Eve first live? See, what? That's correct. Good job. Can anyone tell me who led the Israelites out of Egypt? Yes? Moses. Yes, fantastico. Right. That's what we did that evening, and as we were there, it was really hot. We went to the hottest part of Honduras and the hottest season that they have, and we were right in the middle of nowhere where they have no electricity, no running water, so it was really hot. And we're out there with the kids, trying to stay hydrated, and we noticed my mom's not doing so well, and she's getting kind of sick, and she gets pretty bad, so they decided to take her back to the town, maybe go back to the hotel where there's air conditioning, and she can kind of go off. So my dad and my mom and Pastor Juan Carlos jump in front of the teeny tiny pickup truck, and Translator Zagdale jumps in the back, and they start driving into town, and they get to where the paved road starts. And Pastor Juan Carlos says, "Rusty," to my dad, like, "you have to get in the back of the truck now." My dad's like, "Why?" And he says that the police say that you can only have 2 people in the front of the pickup, but it doesn't really matter how many people you have in the back. So my dad gets in the back, and it starts raining. So my dad's not going back, it's raining, and they get close to the hotel, and my mom is just getting worse. And so Pastor Juan Carlos is like, "Hey, we need to take her to the hospital." And my dad is like, "No way," because 2 years ago, my dad got to visit a hospital in Honduras, and this is actually just a children's ward, but it was just crib after crib after crib, terrible conditions, and the ministry they were doing that year was bringing food, because there's not like a food service at a hospital like there are in a lot of hospitals here. And so my dad was like, "No, we are not taking her there. Like, that is a terrible idea. She'll probably get worse." And Pastor Juan Carlos is like, "Well, there's actually a modern hospital here." And my dad was like, "Well, we'll check it out. Like, we don't have anything better." So this is like the inside hospital. It's in Spanish, but it looks like hospitals I've been to here. And there was leather couches in the waiting area and a chandelier and a TV playing flat screen. And I was like, whoa. So it was fantastic conditions. And so my mom had a room in the emergency room, and they gave her IV with liquids, and they were testing her blood. So while those tests were being done, we all went in and we prayed for her. So Pastor Carlos led us, and he's this very large room with this very large, powerful prayer voice. And so we get to pray for her. And then as the prayer ends, we all leave one way out of the curtained room, and the doctor comes in the other side. And so he talks to my mom and dad, or he's going to tell my mom and dad the test results. And in perfect English, he only speaks Spanish. In perfect English, he says that the tests are fine, like the blood is fine. And when I heard that, it didn't register. I was like, oh, like the blood is fine, like that's good, that's not a problem. But then I'm like, wait, that was in English. Like, who just said that? It was the doctor who only speaks Spanish. So that was a miracle kind of thing that we got to experience. So that evening we went to Wendy's for dinner. We actually do a lot of fast food, which is kind of weird. But anyway, so we were there, and there was this boy there who was like drawing. And we realized he was drawing a picture of one of the girls on our team, the nurse Melena. So we got to talking with him, and he was telling us that he was an orphan and all these different organizations were trying to help him, and they were trying to tell him about God or gods or what he should believe in and how he should live. And he was just really confused because he had all these different people trying to tell him this is the truth. And so Jim's wife, Frances, sat down with him for like 45 minutes and just talked to him about God. And it was pretty cool because we're thinking like, oh, we're just going to dinner. Like, finally, we're just going to dinner. But we got to tell someone about Jesus. And then also another Wendy's story, Pastor Carlos was telling us that they took a busload of kids from La Fortini to the village to Wendy's for a special Christmas treat. And they had never been to town before, and so they brought them to Wendy's and got every kid a cheeseburger and a soft drink. And they got them all sat down and they unwrapped their cheeseburgers and they just looked at them. And then finally this one kid takes a teeny tiny bite and sets it back down and wraps it back up. And the adults are like, why aren't you guys eating this? Like, this is a treat, this is for you guys. Like, you know, you have this is delicious, and you know that. And, but they weren't eating it because I know they had other siblings and family back at home that were going to go hungry that night. So they were saving their one cheeseburger to go back and share it and not just enjoy it themselves. So again, my plan was, all right, the next day, I'm going to get up early and get ready to go and get to church at 8. My class starts at 9, but it's on Honduras time, which means it'll probably start like 9:30, 9:45. But I want to be there at 8, get ready and all set up, and get ready to go. But of course, Thursday morning, we were late. We got there a little bit after 9, and we started setting up the sewing machines, and some of them were display models, and on display models, they take some pieces off, and so we were missing some of these key pieces that you have to run the sewing machine. So that was one roadblock we came to. Also, we were setting up, some of the pastors were helping us, and some students. And so this lady Maria was helping us set up, and when the class started, she disappeared and never came back. So I had a missing student, and that was kind of weird to deal with. So it took that whole morning to get all set up and just teach the basic skill of sewing on a practice piece. And I was like, oh, this is such a waste of time. This is taking forever. I'm never going to get all these projects done. And I also had no official translator. The first 2 times I had like someone assigned to me, and so they would, say anything I was going to say, and they'd be by my side. And I didn't have that this whole morning, and I'm like, I can't teach without someone translating my message. And Andrea and friend Danielle were like bouncing back and forth between me and the nurses and everyone else. And I was like, oh man, like, whew. And then the machines kept jamming. So all this stuff also was very hot. This was kind of picture the church, and there's a window and a door, and that's the only air coming in. And we had a couple fans, but you couldn't really tell if there were fans in there unless you were standing right next to them. So it was very hot, and then the power went out a few times, and I was like, this doesn't come back on. I can't keep teaching you because the machines won't work. But they always came back on, so that was good. So this was my plan, but God's plan jumped in. And my students started working in these like self-made little groups, helping each other. If one had better understanding, they would help the others. And that was just amazing to see them engage in that community, especially knowing that I was only there for a short amount of time, but that they were already teaching each other and taking that opportunity. And so of my 9 students, about 2 students each were from different communities, and so those 2 people kind of grouped together and worked together, and I thought that was really neat. My translator turned out to be Zabiel. Zabiel is 18 years old, and he goes to college in Tegucigalpa to be a lawyer, and he took a few days off of school to come and help us and just be a translator and serve. And it was a little weird at first having like a man translate for a woman's class and like all of us and kind of a womanly skill, but he did such a great job and was an amazing listener, and so he was my translator unexpectedly. That was awesome. So that Thursday afternoon, we finished making curtains, and we made just 2 panels, and this is Susanna, one of my students, and it was amazing to be able to teach her because she is the mayor and the pastor of La Fortunita, and I just think it's amazing that she's a woman in leadership, and she's been the mayor since at least before I came in 2011. So I thought that was amazing to be able to teach her. I'm like, what could I possibly teach you? But so that was that. And then another one of my students, his name is Lucy Dahlia. I think that's the most beautiful name in the world. But anyway, her nickname is Luz, which means light in Spanish. And she has an amazing story. So she grew up in extreme poverty in La Fortunita, and her dad died when she was young, so her uncle helped raise her, and he taught her superstition and paganism and to worship idols and pray to the dead. And she wasn't satisfied with this kind of religion, and was lonely and unhappy. And so when Honduras Ministries came to La Fortunita, her community, she was one of the first to accept them, just even as a part of the community, because La Fortunita was always very hostile towards any Christian influence. And so she was one of the ones who kind of was like, yeah, you can come in here. And so she accepted Christ, and she's being a leader in the church, now teaching kids. And so this is a quote from her. She says, "Since I met Jesus Christ, my life has changed. Now I am happy and feel thankful to my Heavenly Father because He took me out of spiritual darkness and gave me a purpose for my life, all because of the ministry of Brother Jim and Francis. I was able to understand that God loves me, and they showed me the love of God in their lives. Through the church and mainly through Jesus, I've been able to continue studying. The ministry which introduced me to Jesus Christ today permits me the opportunity to serve in a children's project in our community as a teacher of Christian education." And she teaches 4 to 6-year-olds about Jesus. And she says that one of her greatest desires is that each boy or girl in her community might know and accept the love of God. She says her family is not converted yet, but she's praying, and that she knows that one day they'll come to the feet of her Lord Jesus. And I've seen her that first time when I went to Honduras. She was one of the ladies, and she's only 15 at the time, but she was one of the ladies who got up and gave her testimony in church. And the second time, she was there in the background just helping out with the kids at church. And I mean, I kind of looked up to her just seeing her in passing, and I got to teach her, and I thought that was really cool. So as I'm teaching sewing class on one side of the room, probably about the same size as this room actually, on the other side is the medical clinic going on. So all these people are sitting in chairs waiting to see the doctor, and the nurses Melina and Brenda are taking their blood pressure and weighing them, and just kind of doing the same repetitive things over and over again. So well, I know it was so hot, and so that was just amazing to watch. Also in the same room, at one point, some of the men were like, "Hey, let's sing and do some worship." So they got over here in the corner and plugged the guitar in and sang really loud and played really loud as we're trying to teach a class, and doctor and things going on. But it was really fun and really cool to have that as part of the atmosphere. Also, same room, in the middle of the table, where my dad and my sister were doing kids ministry, and they were making bracelets and coloring. And this is my dad, and he likes to do little cartoons, and so he drew a cartoon of this boy. And if you didn't think that was enough, in the same room, in the corner over by my sewing class, there was a pastor who was witnessing to everyone who came to the medical clinic. So you could sit for hours and wait for the doctor, finally see the doctor, and then you had to go over and listen to this pastor tell you about Jesus. And so he would pray for every person, and that they would accept Christ, he would pray with them. And I think about 10 people got saved, and 5 people recommitted their life to Christ, and dozens heard the good news of Jesus. So that was another really cool thing going on amidst all the chaos of everything else. So Friday, we actually got to finish early. I finished teaching them how to make a tote bag and a smaller bag, and yeah, we finished early, but I didn't think we were going to finish at all. So we got to have a graduation service, and and whoever wanted to speak could speak. So I spoke a little bit, and the pastor of the church spoke, and 7 of the students. And it was just amazing to hear the testimony and being able to communicate with each other that way. So in this picture on the top row, left to right, is the pastor of this new church. They haven't even had their first service yet, and they're already having this big sewing class, medical clinic, all this stuff. And then Jim Martin, and then Brenda, who's a nurse, and then my sister, my mom, my dad. And then on the bottom row, we have Mila, who again helped me teach a sewing class, and then 4 of my students, myself, and then 5 more of my students. And the sewing machine in front of them, usually they would go to the student, and then the student would pay back money to the administrative or help grow the ministry. But this time, we're actually going to the church of the community where they're from. So then the church will also give back to the ministry, but be able to expand that skill from their church. So that was really cool. So Saturday, we went to La Fortunita for the whole entire day, and they did a soccer tournament. So they bussed in 5 different teams from all these different cities, and these boys were described as troubled youth. So they made up these soccer teams, and this is a picture of them gathering to hear the story of the prodigal son. And so as I was sitting there, I was kind of looking at how they were dressed, and I was right next to this guy, so I took a picture of him. He has 2 different colored socks on. And I was just thinking about, there's a family I babysit for every summer, and they're very heavily into soccer, and their son who's 10 probably has 3 or 4 different kinds of cleats, and socks, and shin guards, and like multiples of all of these things, and he probably has 15 soccer balls just for him. And, but these guys who were playing, they just came with whatever they had, and this was the best that he had to play with. So just knowing that soccer is like this international sport, it's the same, but also it's kind of different. Also, we got to bring the evangelism ball to Honduras, and so we were talking with the kids and telling them what the different colors represented and how you can play soccer, but while you're playing soccer, you can use this ball to tell people about Jesus and how the black is symbolizes your sin and how you're separated from God, and then the red is Jesus' blood and he died on the cross for your sins, and white he makes us pure. I think that was in one of the songs we sang. And green is about growing a relationship with God for the rest of your life and living for him, and then the yellow reminds us of the streets of gold in heaven and our eternal reward with Jesus. And so some of the kids that were in the church that day, we told them this, and they got to repeat that back to us because they understood this gospel story. So there was a miscommunication between the ministry and our family about the soccer tournament, and how the soccer tournament was apparently sponsored by our family. Even as the soccer tournament is going on, we have no idea. And we have no soccer experience. None of us have ever played. No, absolutely not. So to begin, they asked my dad to kick the inaugural goal kick or whatever to start off the game. And my dad was like, "How do I do that?" I'm like, "Why am I showing them?" He was like, "So this is him kicking the ball," and everyone's standing there like, "What is this guy doing?" But yeah. And while he's doing this, my sister and Zabiel were playing with the kids, and they would have these intense tickle fights. And so it's like 20 kids are tickling you at once, and it hurts, but it's so funny, and that's what they do. Also, during the soccer tournament, my dad got to share his testimony with all these guys. So they've heard the story of the prodigal son, and now they're hearing a testimony of a real guy standing in front of them, telling them that how he now lives his life for Christ. And so that was really cool to got to do that and be a male role model, because a lot of times when we go to church, especially while 14 there wasn't a lot of male presence. It was a lot of the mothers and their kids, and so it was really cool for them to have that guy to tell them that. So this was the soccer field for the tournament. We didn't have a stadium. There wasn't benches. There wasn't a water station. Like this is it, and you can see the metal frame of the goal, and there's no net. It's just that frame there. So that's where the soccer tournament was held. And right next to that was this wooden frame where some of the younger boys were practicing their skills, and also the bathroom for the whole community is in this photo. Can anyone find the bathroom? Take a guess. Actually, it is these very low bushes over here to the right. That's the bathroom. Every once in a while you see someone walk over there, and then after a while they come back. And I'm like, that's so weird. Why would you exclude yourself from the group? But they were using the restroom. So we were there all day long and drinking water like crazy. So eventually I had to go to the bathroom. And I want to say thank you so much for praying and for giving to this trip, because we set some funds in advance, and another team did some construction, and they built a toilet and a sink. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate that personally, for a lot of other people. Thank God for toilets. It's amazing. So as soon as I got there, I had to take something to Susanna's house. And Susanna is the mayor and the pastor, and that day she was giving up her home so that the medical clinic could be held in her home and the community could come to get that service. And so I was told to go there, and I was like, I know where her house is, and all the houses are the same to me. And so they told Johanna to take me there. And she grabbed my hand and took me there, and she never let go of my hand the whole day. She helped me fill all the water bottles that I filled, even though she couldn't have that water. And she and their kids wiped the sweat off my arms. That happened to me in Haiti too, and it's just so humbling. Because when I'm here in the States and I'm sweaty after working out, people are like, oh, you're gross. Like, I don't want to touch you, I don't want to be around you. Please go take a shower. These kids are like, you're in distress. Like, how can I care for you and help you? And so that was always great. And she walked with me everywhere, wherever, whatever I wanted to do. If I wanted to go watch soccer, she came with me and never complained. And I was able to ask her a few questions in Spanish, like her name and if she liked soccer. But we didn't really talk most of the day. But there was still that bond there, just spending time with someone, and you knew we loved each other. And actually, in the brochure that's on her table, if you open up to the middle, there's a picture, and she's actually in that picture. So I thought that was really fun. I saw the brochure. I'm like, that's Johanna, I know her. Because some of the kids like, oh, their face is familiar, but I know her now. Also, some things I did with the kids, my sister and Milena, they don't know any Spanish, but they want to hang out with kids, and so they started drawing in the dirt and playing tic-tac-toe, and they drew Mickey Mouse, and the kids knew who Mickey Mouse was, and that's how they communicated for several hours with the kids. And this is the highlight of the trip. We asked them, like, what's the best time? They say drawing in the dirt with these kids. And we didn't plan that. We didn't bring special supplies or fundraise for drawing in the dirt. But this is the highlight of the trip. Also, we got to do some kids ministry in the church. So the kids that were there waiting for the medical clinic were just kind of hanging out. And so Andrea and Daniela, they're 19 and 15, and they were leading them in songs and quizzing them on the first 5 books of the Bible, which is what we're doing in Sunday school for the elementary kids. So these are kids just like the kids that go here, learning about God and the books of the Bible. And I also got to talk to them about the fruits of the Spirit, and they hadn't heard about that before. And so it was cool to be able to teach them and lead them, and that was awesome. And that's something I want to do as a missionary. I also had a game plan like Simon Says, and one of the commands that they gave in Spanish was to go and hug someone. So it was like, go and hug Amber, go and hug Presley, go and hug Alyssa. So this is everyone going and hugging my sister. And it's so overwhelming, but it's also so amazing to be flooded with that physical touch and know that it's all love, and it's just amazing. So the teams came back from the field and to get their awards in the church and have a closing ceremony, and a storm was coming in, and so it's getting a lot darker, and there's no electricity, so the pictures were all really dark. But it was cool, it cooled off, and the kids were like, oh, Frio, it's so cold. And I was like, oh guys, this feels so good. But I pulled out this picture because the guy in the middle who's wearing a white t-shirt, he was one of the team captains for the 2nd or 3rd place team, and he got to make a speech and talk about how the guys on his team, they're always getting in trouble and doing bad things, but how they're turning their lives around. And he gave a speech about that to all the other teams from all the other cities. And I thought it was cool that he could stand up and share that. And so we went outside, took some pictures, and they were all excited, celebrating. And then Saturday night, I got sick. And I was the last person in our team to get sick. But everyone ended up getting sick, which was kind of a bummer. So I had a fever all day Sunday and missed church. But this is church. And so this is the first church service at this new church building we were at. And this is Jim Martin making a speech and Zabiel translating for him. And something I love about the translators that we work with is they copy the mannerisms of whoever's speaking. So if you're really excited and talking with your hands like this, so will the translators. And if you're really boring and monotone and talk like this, they will do the same thing. Because they want you to get the same experience, they're just giving you a different language. And so it's fun to see both of them like this, doing that. And then the church, the banner behind them said, welcome to our church. So this was a picture of everyone sitting down, and my mom and dad and my sister. Next to my sister is Lucy Dahlia, and the girl next to her is Susanna's daughter. And Susanna's daughter is a nurse, and she's actually holding the bag that her mom made in my class. And I thought that was really cool that they're already using what they had made and being excited about that. And then this is kind of everyone that was there that day, because it was the first Sunday that this church had. A lot of people from other churches came and celebrated with them. So this was a huge number of people, and that's why. But so this church is growing. And so then after that Monday, we traveled back up north to Tegucigalpa, and we had gotten some spending money. They gave us some lempiras to buy snacks, and I bought this purse, just, tourism and whatever. So we had a bunch of it left over. We were given about $40 American, which was several hundred lempiras. And so we put it all, kind of pulled it all together and gave it back to Jim. And he kind of counted it. He's like, wow, this is a lot. And then he started crying. And he told us that Lucy Dahlia needed to get her teeth fixed, and that she was saving and saving, and finally had to take out a loan to get her teeth fixed, and that what we had pulled together was enough to cover it so that she could get her teeth fixed. So she's smiling with her mouth closed in this picture because this is before her teeth were fixed, but now she smiles with her mouth open because she's proud of her new teeth. And so it's cool to be a part of that, not even that intentionally. We were like, oh, we don't need this, like, give it to the ministry. But he was like, no, there's a purpose for this, and it's meaningful. So I had a couple of themes I want to talk about. I want to thank you for listening to this story. And so this story started for me way back in 2010, and it gained momentum as I visited Honduras on each trip. And the story includes so many people. It includes my family, because they've all gone, and my grandparents. My grandma taught me how to sew. She's included in this story. And my church at home, Christ Community Church, and also Castle Hills. You're a part of this story. And the story was told by me today, but this is really God's story and God's word. And I think that's something that's really important to remember. Something else that's really important is prayer. You heard today about prayer for my mom at the hospital, and there's prayer that was covering our team the whole time as we got sick, and we all recovered before we even left Honduras, and that was amazing. And also the Honduran style of prayer is that everyone prays out loud together. So when the pastor says, all right, let's pray, it's not just, it wouldn't be just Pastor Joy praying out loud, the rest of us being silent. Everyone raises their voices in prayer. So that idea that prayer is a communal thing and not just an individual thing is important to remember, and that is powerful. It's not something we do just to gain results, but it's a way to interact with God and invite Him to participate in our lives. And then also the idea of giving. You've given time to hear this story, and your time is valuable, and I thank you for that. You've also given time to pray for Honduras ministries, and you also give by affirming me in my ministry, my call to ministry, every day as I come to Castle Hills, every week. And thank you for that, for affirming that in me. And you've heard about Honduras ministries and all the different ways that they serve, and they do focus on spiritual formation. They want to lead people to Jesus, but they also realize that it's really hard to engage in that spiritual thing when you're hungry and when you're sick, just because of simple things, like you don't know how to wash your hands before each meal and that sort of thing. And so they're also working on education and providing food and those things that people need. And so some ways to be involved with Honduras ministries are to give money and your prayer. I did go on a mission trip. It could be whatever you are. Like I know how to sew, and here that's not a big deal. Like I don't do that professionally. That's just a hobby of mine. But God is able to use that part of me in ministry, and so He can use you too in whatever you are. And so the brochures kind of have a link to Honduras Ministries website, and also the child sponsorship program, which is really cool. They provide backpacks for the kids and enable them to go to school. And most kids in Honduras only get a 6th or 7th grade education, and then they drop out and have to go work somewhere where they're probably not going to earn enough to survive. And a lot of them go hungry, and their families go hungry. So they help them provide what they need to get an education, and they also provide food so that they're not hungry while they're in the classroom. Also while they're talking about Jesus and giving them medical care. So it's a pretty big deal, this child sponsorship program. But anyway, thank you very much for hearing this story today.